I'm here actually on behalf of Louisiana Smoke Free, and we're here basically getting people to see the effects of secondhand smoke, knowing that everybody has the right to breathe clean air, and also to get kids especially to realize the effects of secondhand smoke. That's my job as Miss Louisiana, to make sure that children have that possibility and to make sure they also see the effects and the damaging effects it has.
Tell us how this has affected you on a personal level.
On a personal level, I've actually seen the effects of secondhand smoke. My grandfather passed away from lung cancer before I was ever born. So I never had that relationship with my grandparent that a lot of kids get to experience. And I feel slighted that I had that relationship taken away from me, and I think it's my duty and my job as Miss Louisiana to make sure that an ordinance gets passed here in East Baton Rouge Parish to make sure that we have a smoke-free environment for everybody.
Good afternoon. 2 weeks ago, we launched a campaign to make Baton Rouge 100% smoke-free with a host of musicians, community leaders, business owners, and public health advocates. The response has been overwhelmingly positive, and we're excited that Baton Rouge is on the move to become 100% smoke-free. We believe that the response we've received is an example of how important the poll is, or the truth of the poll, in fact. 70% of EBR residents believe that it's time for East Baton Rouge Parish to go 100% smoke-free. Today, we are honored to be joined by some of our newest supporters. We have with us representatives from AARP, the Michael Foster Project, Mr. Kenny NEAL, as well as Miss Louisiana. So without further ado, I'll pass it on to our new supporters. Thank you.
Thank you, STASHA. Good afternoon. I'm Dr. Jean George, and I'm a volunteer leader with AARP Louisiana. AARP has a long history and tradition of leading initiatives to help meet the needs of the 50-plus population and their families. Whether the issue is healthcare, caregiving, jobs, or making communities more livable, AAR has been and will continue to be a tireless advocate and leader. AARP believes that all Americans deserve a healthy work environment, regardless of what the work is. And that's why we are here today. We are very proud to stand here with the musicians and the other organizations and individuals to pledge AARP's support for all smoke-free workplaces, for all workplaces to be smoke-free, and to strongly encourage businesses to put their employees' health first. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Kenny NEAL, and I very much support smoke-free in East Baton Rouge. I perform about 10 to 15 countries a year. I go all over the place. I come back home to my state of Louisiana and walk into a bar and smell the smoke, and I usually request not to smoke when I perform. So I'm very much in support of us making this big move, and let's do it. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Michael Foster. I have a brass band here in Baton Rouge called the Michael Foster Project. I've been a professional musician in this city for at least 20 years, and I'm a two-time arts ambassador with the Arts Council of Greater Baton Rouge. I also get to travel around the world and around the United States to perform my art for people who love Louisiana music and the culture that Louisiana has to offer. And so when we do arrive here back home and we have to play inside of a smoke-filled venue, it's almost like you'd rather be away from your home place to play where you can enjoy the cleaner air. We recently played at Park City for Sundance Film Festival where the air is a lot thinner. And it's easy for me to prepare when I know I'm going to make that kind of trip. I can go to the gym and do some cardio when I know the breathing is going to be a little bit differently. But it's impossible for me to prepare to play in a smoke-filled venue. So I am 100% board for smoke-free Baton Rouge and Louisiana. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is April Nelson, and I am Miss Louisiana 2015, and I'm here on behalf of the Miss Louisiana organization as well as Tobacco Free Living. I have had a personal connection with being in smoke-free environments, but also making sure that everyone is in smoke-free environments. My grandfather passed away before I ever got to meet him because of secondhand smoke. He was in the war and he was surrounded by smoke and was affected in his 40s. He quit being around smoke and then didn't die until he was 60, but because of the effects that had happened prior to, he passed away. And so I never had that relationship with my very own grandparent. And I want every child to be able to have relationships with their grandparents, with wonderful musicians that we have here in East Baton Rouge. And I think it's so important to make sure that we get kids involved, we get young people involved in asking their council members to make sure that every environment is smoke-free. That means casinos and bars as well. Especially here in East Baton Rouge Parish, we need to make sure that we're coming up with the same standards that New Orleans is having. We need to make sure that we're on the same level and bringing these beautiful musicians, our beautiful culture, in a smoke-free environment that everybody can enjoy. I think it's so important to make sure that everyone has the right to breathe smoke-free air. So I'm hoping that everyone can get behind us and that one day, very, very soon, East Baton Rouge Parish will also be a smoke-free environment for everyone. Thank you.
My name is QUIANA LYNELL, and I am a vocalist here out of East Baton Rouge, and I totally support the smoke-free initiative here in East Baton Rouge Parish. As a vocalist, you know, it's very important for me to be able to conserve my throat, and I hardly go anywhere where there's smoke, and I'm very fortunate that most places I perform have already put that bar in place, but there are a few places where I already know the night is going to be hectic because that air is going to be foggy, and we deserve the same rights and privileges that you receive at your office. Every day when you go to work, nobody's going to sit next to you and light up because that's just common practice. So in our place of work, we deserve those same rights and privileges that everybody else is afforded daily. So we hope that you also stand behind us as musicians and artists right here in your community and join us in making Baton Rouge smoke-free for everyone.
I'm a performer, I'm an entertainer, and I have been performing in New Orleans for the last year. I graduated with a musical theater degree, so all of my friends are performers, and performers in New York and LA, places that have smoke-free environments for many performers. But here we have a lot of performers in casinos and bars who don't get that same treatment. And it's so important for us to be able to practice our craft and not have the harmful effects of secondhand smoke affect us while we're practicing our craft and while we're being performers, because this city, New Orleans, Baton Rouge, is huge in the arts, and I think it's one of the things that makes us unique throughout the state of Louisiana, South Louisiana especially. So it's important that we all have the chance to practice in a smoke-free environment.
I'm very supportive of the smoke-free because we have to perform in these different clubs, and also just in this Louisiana, the state of Louisiana, we find that everybody's still smoking, and it's very hard to perform with smoke clouded around you all the time, you know.
What kind of physical effects do you feel after being in a smoky environment for several hours?
Well, you definitely feel a difference. I mean, you can feel like you haven't got the right oxygen that you really need to perform. So it's not a great feeling at all.
How does this affect other musical performers that you're familiar with?
Well, take for instance, my band don't smoke, and I don't smoke. Nobody smokes. So it's like a disaster when we go in to perform and everybody's smoking around us. But this is the way we make our living.
What would you like to see happen?
I would like to see them put the cigarettes out and not smoke.
Your reaction to everything you've seen and heard here today?
I'm so happy to see that we're coming together and putting our heads together, and then hope that it worked for us.
I came here to support East Baton Rouge Smoke Free. I'm a musician. I'm also a registered nurse, and I really believe that we need to have clean air for everyone. 70% of our population, of the people that work in casinos and bars, are minorities. That's the best job they can get, and so they work in areas that are filled with smoke. As a registered nurse, I know the effects of smoke. I had 2 family members die of lung cancer. So I want to do everything I can to make it a better, healthier place for the young musicians coming up, as well as for performers now. When I play in a smoke-filled venue, I can't wait to get home and wash my hair. I do that like 3 times. I have to wash my clothes. So the air is so laden with all of these chemicals. There's 70 known carcinogens in secondhand smoke. And so I want to make sure that I do what I can as an advocate for young musicians and for the current musicians to make smoke-free workplaces.
How does it physically affect you after being in a smoky environment for several hours?
Well, I have a lot of allergies, so my eyes burn, I cough a lot, I have a scratchy throat, and I'm a horn player, so you have to use a lot of wind, so you have to breathe a lot, so you're pulling in all this smoke-filled air. And I can't stand the smell of it. The other night I played at a club, and I thought it was smoke-free until the drummer started smoking, and I thought, I can't even be on stage with it. It's really awful.
Your reaction to what you've seen and heard here today?
Well, I'm 100% in support of smoke-free. I'm so glad to see all of these musicians on board. And there are a lot of other musicians I know in the community that couldn't be here today because of the time, but they're all supporting smoke-free East Baton Rouge.
I'm here because I'm very concerned about having to play at venues that still allow smoking here in Baton Rouge and Louisiana. I'm a musician, I'm a sousaphone player, and that's for anybody that doesn't know, that's the tuba, but it's the big marching tuba that wraps around you. It requires a great deal of air to play. Well, usually if I'm playing in the mountains or somewhere, I know how to prepare for when the air is thin and something where I have to do a lot of breathing. And I can prepare for that. I can go do some cardio for a couple of weeks. But anytime I have to play in a venue that's smoke-filled, I'm not able to prepare for that. And it definitely affects my playing. It affects how long I can play, how many times I'm going to have to take a break, and any type of phrasing in songs that I'm not able to play because of the way I have to breathe due to a smoke-filled venue.
How do you feel after performing for several hours in a smoke-filled environment?
Oh, I'm usually drained because it requires more stops and breathing. I feel like there's kind of like a film of smoke over me. I don't like the feeling. It's in my hair, it's in my clothes, but more importantly, when I'm breathing, I feel kind of bogged down. I feel clogged up, and I just have to stop and break. And I have to take more breaks of going outside to kind of feel like I can get some fresh air before it's time for me to come back in and play.
What about other musical performers?
No, most musicians I know, even though it's not tuba, especially anybody that plays a wind instrument, and even if you're in a percussion instrument, you're doing a physical thing where your body it's kind of like doing cardio in a gym. So you're breathing a lot more, almost if you're jogging, and you're taking it in a lot faster. So all the musicians I know, we all prefer to play. If we have a choice, we prefer to play in a venue that is smoke-free.
What about long-lasting effects from other musicians, particularly those that have been performing in smoky environments for many, many years?
Well, I've not met any personally, but I've heard the stories and seen some guys. I spoke with, I got a chance to know Deacon John right after Hurricane Katrina when he moved here to Baton Rouge, right after everything was happening. We went to the radio station to do an interview, and we did get a chance to talk, and he had a very close friend who actually died or was about to die from secondhand smoke, just being a musician all those years. And for me, being at the time a lot younger than those guys like Deacon John, and hearing these guys who've been in these smoke-filled clubs over the years, it's kind of scares me that, okay, if I continue to play in these smoke-filled venues, what is my future going to be like, and how long will I be able to play and be around my kids and my family if I continue to play in these venues?
Your reaction to everything you've seen and heard here today?
I am excited about this movement. I feel very positive about what's going on. And I just hope everybody can really look and see that, as a musician, somebody who this is what I do for a living, and for me to support my family, I would like to have the best working conditions possible at all for me to continue the work that I love to do and that I've been doing for so many years.
I am a volunteer leader with AARP Louisiana, and AARP has a tradition and history of advocating for healthy work environments for everyone, regardless of what the nature of the workplace is.
How are AARP members and elderly members of the community affected by smoke?
I think all members of the community are affected by smoke, whether it's first-hand smoke or second-hand smoke. The science is in. We know it's unhealthy. So that's AARP's position is to look at the health issues and to advocate for good health practices, good public health policies, and healthy environments for everyone. So it's a broad policy, but also here in Louisiana, here in Baton Rouge, we would like to see Baton Rouge have a policy that's consistent with the state law, which says workplaces should be smoke-free. I have a sister who had lung cancer. Fortunately, she is in remission from that, but there were many years of very poor health and difficult medical treatments. My father died in his 70s from congestive heart failure, and we know that that's also affected by smoke, and he was a heavy smoker. And I also had a brother who was a smoker who died from renal cell cancer. So my family were heavy smokers, and I think now we're seeing the price they're paying for that.
What do you think of everything you've seen and heard here today?
I'm very supportive of everything I've seen and heard here today. Certainly, I am very much personally in sympathy with the plight of the musicians here who are trying to perform and using their voices and having to deal with the smoke. I guess all I can say is it's a health hazard, and we know that, and no one should be subjected to it.
I came here to show my support for the smoke-free initiative in Baton Rouge. As a vocalist, it's very important that I'm able to perform to my best ability in any venue that I may be hired to perform at.
How do you feel physically after being in a smoky environment, performing after a couple hours?
I'm not even able to perform to my best ability while I'm performing because being able to get the breath that I need and the support that I need, it's just not there when there's a room full of smoke. Afterwards, I feel like an asthmatic would feel. I have band members who have asthma. It's just a miserable night for us to be in an environment where we need to be there to support and feed our families, but yet and still we're uncomfortable health-wise.
What's the difference between performing in a smoke-free environment and a smoky environment?
Oh, there's breath, like that's the number one thing for me as a vocalist is my breath support and my ability to hold my notes and attain my notes, and that all starts with air. So not having that fogginess in my lungs is paramount. It's totally different.
How have family members been affected in your family by smoking?
Well, I really have to say that I don't have a lot of people in my family that smoke. I have one aunt that smokes a lot, and we hate when Christmas was at her house. Like, it was like, no, we're going to Christmas at her house. It's her house even if she didn't smoke inside, she was conscious enough to smoke outside when we were there, but we would all leave smelling like smoke, feeling like smoke. It was horrible. So I don't have a lot of family members. Most of my immediate family, nobody smokes. Thank goodness. We're all singers. We're all singers, so we don't like that raspiness that smoke can give you.
What do you think of what you've seen and heard here today?
I think it's beautiful. I think it's beautiful that we are all coming together, that the musicians for Smoke-Free Louisiana have given us a voice, that we don't have to be always present, but they know that we're supporting them and that we're glad that they're making that our voices be heard, because it's hard to look in the face of a club owner that's paying you for your services, but ask them for something that they know is going to maybe conflict with their business or their money-making ends on the other side. So if it's coming from, a higher power, and at the end of the day, it's to help everyone have the same level playing field. This is how we support our families. It is our art, but nobody else has to go to work and deal with an environment like that.
I came in support of Smoke-Free Baton Rouge. I'm definitely a strong supporter of non-smoking, in clubs, bars, and whatever have you. I also, like the other musicians, have done a lot of national touring and have seen this change already take place in other parts of the country. And I believe that it has not diminished in any way the possibility of people coming to support, venues and bars and so forth, because the bars are truly about, drinking and not about smoking. It's just that the people who cannot handle cigarette smoke and who value their health, need the opportunity to be in there as well without having to be subject to the cigarette smoke. So, those are my thoughts. I believe that Baton Rouge is a little bit behind the times with this, and I think if they look across the country, if they look at the West, you look at the Northwest, up the East Coast, different corridors of the country, you'll see that this has already happened, and it's not like anybody's twisting your arm or trying to take your rights away. They're just trying to protect the health of everybody involved.
How do you feel after performing in a smoky environment for 4 or 5 hours?
Well, it's a total difference. As a vocalist, of course, it makes it very difficult to breathe. And of course, you're going to get the residual allergenic stuff that happens. And who knows what other kind of damages are happening from all the different components of chemicals that you're breathing from cigarette smoke. But, and again, I like to reiterate from my past conversations about this, I'm not like a brand new musician or a young musician who haven't experienced this. I came along in the era when smoking in smoky bar rooms were very popular. I was an ex-smoker myself, and we watched huge icons die from this kind of stuff. So we know better, and we just really want to educate the public to kind of respect the fact that we do know better and we want to do differently. Now, us being a small component in the community that has not been protected already from this smoking ban, because you can't smoke in a regular workplace in the city. You couldn't, if you worked in a state office, you couldn't smoke in it. So of course people relate cigarettes, drinking, and all this stuff to entertainment, of course. But we just want people to know that we're conscious of it and we're aware of the health, hazards and all the other things that go with it. And whoever is looking at this from the big perspective probably need to be aware also that we're aware. And those are things that need to be pointed out, I believe, because they think that just because you're a musician or just because you're creative and you work in these environments that you accept it. That's not true. You have no control over it. But we do want to have a say in it, and we're very happy that Smoke-Free Baton Rouge has arrived, and we're ready to push that all the way through. Regardless of what the opponents and everybody else might think, the conscious musician is behind this 100%.
How has smoking affected your health and the health of your family members?
Well, I know for a fact I've probably lost a couple of years off my life because I've spent lots of years in smoky bar rooms as playing music as a musician. And I directly, one of my band members, Ronnie Houston, who was with me for 25 years, passed away last year from COPD. And we literally watched him smoke himself into this situation. And even when he tried to stop smoking, every time we was in a venue that was smoking, it was like him smoking as well. So he was never able to escape it, and eventually it took his life at 60 years old. So I've seen the direct effects. I know exactly what's going to happen. And if I could give somebody a blow-by-blow or a video of what we experienced with Ronnie Houston with inhalers and being out of breath and passing out and having to go to the hospital and being in the ERs and whatever, and I guarantee they probably would throw their pack of cigarettes away today. But for the people who haven't seen that or haven't experienced that, they're thinking that it's not going to be me. Well, we saw with our drummer, it was him, and he's gone. He's not here. So we've had direct impact.
What do you think of what you've seen and heard here today?
I think this is the catalyst for a campaign that's going to be successful. Why I believe that? I believe that because in all the other parts of the country that it's already been successful in, it started the same way with components of show business and creatives, and then trickling into the general populace and population and getting people aware and conscious that, that we need to do this. So I think that this is it. I think the Smoke-Free Baton Rouge is probably the strongest campaign that we've seen. We've already accomplished New Orleans, which was a lot bigger than Baton Rouge to do. And we've seen the benefits of that also. We've seen attendance up. I just did 3 days of Mardi Gras in the Treme, and we've seen attendance pop up, because people have the option. They can walk out and smoke. They don't have to worry about being inside of a building or a place and people smoking. So all of your people who are conscious and health conscious, they're there, because they can feel comfortable now to be there.
What kind of response do you get when you talk to young people as you go into schools about being smoke-free?
Sure. Well, I've done actually Red Ribbon Week with all of Ouachita Parish, and I've been able to go into the schools and talk to young kids about staying drugs and alcohol free, and obviously the harmful effects of tobacco. And they are able to pick up really well what you're talking about and what you're saying. And I've seen a lot of kids go back to their parents actually and tell them about what they've learned about staying drugs and alcohol free, but especially smoke free. And I've seen it take a turn into the older generations. So kids can pick up things like sponges. And I've been able to go in and talk to these children in the schools and actually get them to see that they can be successful in life and they can go further in life should they choose to turn away from drugs and alcohol. And having a smoke-free environment is just the icing on top of the cake.
What is your message to your peers, college students that seem to be smoking more?
So a lot of my friends aren't smoking because we're all performers. We're singers, dancers, actors, and you can't smoke and have longevity in your career by engaging in those activities. So I don't see it along with a lot of my friends, but I do see it on campuses, on college campuses, and outside of college campuses, obviously in bars and casinos. And I would say to everybody, especially people my age, we are the generation, I think, that has started to become more health conscious and really get involved. And if you see someone that you know who is your age, a friend that you know who's your age, who is engaging maybe in smoking, or they're around a lot of secondhand smoke, I think it's time for them to get involved. Ask your council members about what they can do to get involved with East Baton Rouge Parish, for example, to start this smoke-free ordinance. And I think we, as 24-year-olds, as the early 20s, have a lot of impact and a lot of power to make that happen. So get out, get involved, and make sure that everybody can breathe a smoke-free environment.
What's your reaction to everything that you've seen and heard here today?
I mean, I'm excited. I think that it's going to happen. Now seeing that New Orleans has done exactly that, I think it's time for East Baton Rouge Parish to follow in the footsteps of New Orleans and make sure that everybody can live a clean, healthy lifestyle and not be affected by others' choices.